Okay, so this is going to be your introduction to DT Max or TPS. And again, I use those two terms interchangeably. DT Max is the name of our program. TPS stands for Tax Preparation Software. So we do sort of say both. Anytime I say TPS, I'm talking about DT Max. Today we're going to learn how to open the program. Even more importantly, and this is critical that everyone do this together because it is going to change all of your settings, and your settings have to match my settings in order for you to have the right information on your screen. Otherwise, you're going to run into some annoying, fussy things you have to deal with on every single problem you do. So we're going to go through setting up your DT Max and your profile first. Then we're going to start doing a tax return. So we're going to learn by the end of the day how to do a basic tax return using the tax prep software. I'll also be showing you by the end of today's class how you can print your return or pages from your return if you want to have a print of it, how you can save pages in PDF form to your computer, and how you can extract files from your DT Max so that you can send those files to me. At the end of the class, if you're working on your practice problems and you're not getting the right answer, instead of just sending me a couple of pages of your tax return and having me figure out what you did wrong, I'm going to show you how to send me your entire DT Max problem. I can install it on my DT Max software. I can open it and I can see all of your data entry and all of your results and tell you precisely what you did wrong. And then I can send you an email back and say you need to fix this and this and this. So I will make sure everyone knows how to do that by the end of today, and I will review that for a couple of classes because it's really critical. That's how I can help you when you're working at home on your homework exercises. Okay, so we're going to be learning how to open it. We're going to learn about the Smart Start client profile screen, and we're going to learn about entering personal information. We're going to be accessing other data entry sections, how to do a Form 1135. We're going to learn that today. We're going to be doing T4 slips today, and we're going to learn how to actually get from the data entry page to the tax return, and then how to review it and how to print it. Okay. Everything in this book, everything we're doing today is in your textbook with really helpful photos and pictures and screenshots so that you can make sure it matches, and as well as a lot of detail. I'm going to go through as much detail as I can, but again, this is not something you can necessarily memorize. There's a lot of detail in tax theory. Similarly, there's a lot of detail in the program. One thing I am going to show you as we go through the next chapters is how to have the program help you find the answers, and also remind you that a lot of this information is in your textbook. So if you can search in Inkling, you can usually find what you need there with more detailed instructions than what I can do in just a 3-hour lecture. Okay. Every TPS chapter, so for the rest of the course, you're going to have an in-class exercise. Do not do the in-class exercise before you come to class. We're going to do them together, and I will be adding information and I will be taking information away. When I add information, I'm going to type in the chat window. When I'm taking information away, I'm going to type in the chat window to delete something. You're going to have to keep up with what we're doing. So if you're working ahead, you're going to get different answers from what the rest of the class has. Okay. You can read the TPS chapters in advance if you want to. Okay. You should not do the in-class exercises. I will say if you're very comfortable and you want to do the practice problems ahead of time, I'm not going to be adding anything to the practice problems, but you will probably find you're more successful if you've done them after we've done them in class. So we don't recommend doing the practice problems ahead of time. That's going to be your homework. So we're going to have class. I'm going to show you how to do things in TPS. Then you can go and practice on your own. We hopefully will have some time in every class to be working on them as well, so that a portion of our class is going to be troubleshooting and you having problems with your program not working and asking me while we're in class together. So if we finish the material early at the beginning of class, then what we'll have for the rest of the class is time to practice, where you have access to both Nancy and me to help you figure out what's not working on your end. Okay? And then once you've learned how to make the related entries, you can do that. If you want to, now that you've done the early course, When you get far enough in the TPS, and if you want more TPS practice, you can go back and try the chapter review problems. Most of the chapter review problems you will be able to do in your computer. One or two of them are particularly tricky issues. So when we get into some of the messy RRSP things like that, you may find that those ones would be ones you would leave to a more senior associate. But for the most part, by the end of this course, you should be able to do your chapter review problems in TPS as well. It's not required, it's just if you want more practice. Okay. So when you have your, should you be making notes of the things I'm adding and deleting? It'll be in the chat window. You don't need to make notes unless you're going to want to go back and do it again. My goal is at the end of the class, we all have the same answer on our in-class assignment. So if you've got the right answer on the in-class assignment, you won't necessarily need to make notes. But if you think that you're going to come back and try it 2 or 3 or 4 more times, then you might need to make a note as well. Okay, so when you open the tax prep software, you're going to get a screen that looks like this. It's going to say DT Max Thomson Reuters. The username is a capital T, capital A. Don't change that. It's the default. The password for everybody is lowercase TA. And it's really important if you've already installed your program, and this was in the instructions that were sent by email, do not change any of the database locations. If you change anything for how it's installed and how it's running, it will not work. This is a very complicated program with a lot of moving pieces, so it just isn't going to work the way you want it to work. So I'm going to go here, and I'm actually going to use my computer to open DT Max, and you can do the same along with me. So I've got it on my screen in front here. You can see it's a little bit smaller. I want to show you a few things on this page that can be changed that you should be aware of that we will not be using in this course. So if you go to the left side of the box, you're going to see here we have the tax year. We will learn to change tax years because sometimes we want to do older returns to newer returns. So if you do the drop-down box, you can see you can do prior year returns in this as well. If you're noticing your numbers are wrong and nothing's making sense, you might have changed your tax year and not realized it. So Brittany, if yours says 2020, yes, you should change it. Make sure it says 2021. Okay. And then just below that drop down, so we have a tax year drop down box. You can change the tax year. Make sure you're on 2021 for today at least. You're going to see we have different DT Max products. Right now, the default is T1 personal. We are learning how to do personal tax returns in this course. However, there are other types of returns you can do. So if you were doing the corporate course, you would be choosing T2. And that would open a completely different type of tax return with completely different clients, completely different data entry. So if you're noticing when you open it, nothing makes sense and nothing looks right, or if you open it and all your files seem to have mysteriously disappeared, you might be in the wrong DT Max product. So T2 is corporate, T3 is trusts. We're not going to do any of those returns in this course. Those are advanced courses. So make sure that your opening screen says tax year 2021 and T1 personal. Try not to change the T1 personal. Like I said, it can get really stressful if you open it and everything looks completely different. Once you have tax year 2021 and it says T1 personal here, you can go to the password, type the letter T, type the letter A, make sure your caps lock is off, and then you can press enter or start, and your screen will open. Now, when yours opens, it will have no files in it, so it's going to look a little bit more like this. Okay, I've got lots of files because I've been using DT Max to demonstrate things in class so that I can make changes and review problems as we go, but yours should at this point be blank. What you will notice at the top right corner of the screen is we now have the information about what type of returns we're working on in the right corner. So at the right side of the screen, you're going to see the tax year in large letters, 2021, large numbers, and you're going to see T1. Again, if you open DT Max and everything looks weird, or you can't find your files, or you're not sure why the numbers aren't working, or all your files are blank, the first place I want you to look is the top right corner. You're probably in the wrong year or in the wrong type of return. So that information will be on the top corner of your screen at all times. Okay, so I'm going to ask, has everyone gotten to the same place that I'm at? So if you think that you are in the right place, give me a green check mark. If you think not, give me a red X, or you can type in the chat window. Double check the right side of your screen. Make sure it says 2021 and T1. Okay, I've got a handful of people. I'm waiting for a few more. Because the next thing we're going to do is going to be absolutely critical. Coolwinder, if yours says 2020, then you need to change your tax year. Okay, and if you have the wrong software or the wrong download, you're going to need to go back to the instructions and follow from there. Okay. There may have been an issue if you were a previous user or previous person in this course. If you've taken this course before and you already had it installed on your computer, then the install is not going to work the way that you want it to. So you're going to have to make sure you've uninstalled it and then do it again. And Karina, I'm not sure if the demo is going to do what you said. Now, hang on, let me check. There's one more thing that could happen if you have two open at the same time. Nope, it won't let you do two. I don't know, honestly, Karina. I have no idea if that's going to work. You really do need to have the actual product because I don't know if the demo is going to update numbers or give you the full capability. So see if it works for today, but make sure before next class that you reach out and get that sorted out so that you have the full version, which is the one that we need. Okay? Okay, and Coolwinder, what you can do, if it says 2020, you can change the tax year now. Okay, so if you are in the wrong tax year and you're on this screen and it says 2020 instead of 2021, what you can do is go to File, and you're going to see it says Change Tax Year. Okay, so if you're looking up here and it says 2020 and you want it to be 2021, you can close it, reopen it, and change the tax year there. Or if you're already in it, you can go File, click on File at the top left corner, click on Change Tax Year. It's going to give you the options, and you can change to a different tax year. I can change to 2021. Sorry, my screen is just going to keep going over when I do that. And you can see now it says 2020 prior year, and then I can go File, Change Tax Year back to 2021. And now it's going to say 2021. All right, Karina, if yours says 2011, try changing your tax year and see what that does. Change it to 2021. Okay. Going to go on. The next thing is really, really important. So we're going to talk about how to change our preferences. I'm going to show you on the slides first, and then I'm going to show you how to do it in my program. You have to do this for everyone. Okay, it is absolutely critical because it's going to change how your program works. And there are a couple of preferences we have to change. Okay, so when you're in your toolbar at the top in DT Max, you have ones that say File, Edit, View, etc. I want you to click on the one that says Preferences, and then click on the one that says Users Defaults. Okay, so go to the top screen in DT Max, find Preferences, and find Users Defaults. And again, if your program isn't working right now, and we're going to get that fixed for you, we will be giving you the slides at the end of class, so you will be able to follow along at home and get this set up. I cannot stress how important this is. Some of these settings are going to change things that will create warnings in your file that have to be cleared. If we've done the setup correctly, it's going to eliminate a whole bunch of things that are going to create issues later. So Preferences, click on Users Default. Then you're going to go change the default for the client information. So you're going to get a box that says client information. I want you to change the province to Manitoba and the city to the city that you are in. So if you're in Winnipeg, put Winnipeg. If you're in Steinbeck, put Steinbeck. If you're in Brandon, put Brandon. And then you're going to see a box that says disallow duplicate entry of client. Make the tick, if it's ticked with an X, make the X go away. Make sure that one is blank, okay? I'm going to do that now on my DT Max so that you can see what it looks like when I do that. So I'm going to go to Preferences up at the top of the screen. I'm going to choose Users Defaults. If you like hotkeys, you can also hold Alt down and press F2. That does the same thing from this screen. So Preferences, Users Defaults, Province or Territory should be Manitoba. City should be, for me, Winnipeg. For you, it's where you are. And then make sure if you have a check mark here, disallow duplicate, take the check mark away. If you've done that, I want you to hit save so that it saves. When you think you've got that, give me a green check mark. Let me know that you have done that thing. So I'm going to hit save. I'm going to show it to you one more time. You're going to go Preferences up at the top. Users Defaults is the selection you want to pick. Province or territory, make sure it says Manitoba. City, make sure it says the city you're in. And then disallow duplicate entry of client. Make sure that's blank. Okay, got some green check marks. Okay. So that's the first one. Let's look at the next thing we have to change. Cancel that. The next one we're going to change is the tax return setting. So in the toolbar, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to go Preferences, Users Default, and this time you're going to find some tab buttons here. One said Client Information, we started there. I want you to click on the one that says Tax Return next. Okay. And when it says Tax Return, I want you to go down to the bottom here where it says Level 2, Disclose Request Federal Changes, and Authorize Federal Online Access, and I want you to clear those boxes as well. So Preferences, Users Default, click on the tab that says Tax Return. It's going to open this. Don't change anything else on this screen. Please don't change anything else on this screen. But where it says Level 2 and Authorize Federal Online Access, I want you to clear those as well. And then hit Save. So I'm going to do that so you can see that as well. We're going to go Preferences, Users Defaults. You only have to do this once, but you have to do it once per tax year that you're in. So we're doing it for 2021 right now. I'm going to choose Tax Return as my tab. It's going to open up all of this. And here I have a tick box here and a tick box here. I'm going to take those out. Okay, if you've got that done, give me a green check mark. If you're having difficulty, type in the chat window and say what you're having a hard time finding. Okay, make sure you hit the Save button. So it's going to be Preferences, Users Defaults. Click on the Tax Return tab. And if it says Level 2 and Authorize Federal, clear those. So Karina, you're going to need to download the new DT Max. We will take a break today before we start working on the in-class exercise, which will give everyone a little bit of time to do that. Okay, and Karina, if you are downloading the new DT Max, make sure you uninstall anything with DT Max on it on your computer first, uninstall it fully, and then download the new one. Okay. Good, so I'm going to hit Save here. Now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to change the tax year, and we're going to do it for 2020. And the reason we're doing it for 2020 and 2021 is we will be using 2020 returns as well, so we have to set all the preferences again. So this time, I'd like you to go to the top left corner, click on File, click on Change Tax Year, and change it to 2020. It will now say 2020 T1 prior. And you're going to do exactly what you did before. You're going to set your preferences. Preferences, user defaults. I've got Manitoba. I want Winnipeg for me. And I'm going to save. Preferences, users defaults, that's still in there. I'm going to go to the tax return and I'm going to take away the two little tick boxes and I'm going to hit save again. And now I have what I need. Okay. There's one more setting we can change, which I will show you, but I'm going to do it from the 2021 tax year. This is going to be across the board for everything when we change it, but I like to be in 2021 most of the time because we're going to do 2021 today. So now that I've changed my settings in 2020, make sure I'm still in 2020, I'm going to go back to 2021. You're going to keep seeing my screen is going to go back and forth. I'm in 2021. I have a T1. We're going to do one more thing, which is the user interface now. So this time, you're going to go into Preferences, and instead of choosing User's Defaults, you're going to go down a lot further down, and you're going to choose User Interface. So before we were in User Default, now we're going to be in User Interface. You can decide what your preference is for this. So this is optional. It's not going to change the results. What this is going to do, however, is make your screen look like what it has in the textbook. So if you want it to look like in the textbook, you're going to choose User Interface, and you can say, don't show the keywords in uppercase. If you prefer to see them so that it looks exactly like the computer in the DT Max exercises, click that box and say, don't show them in uppercase. I'm going to show you what that does. So if you're working on doing this now, you can see in the screen. When I go in, I have on the left side, I have what are called keywords. And we're going to talk about keywords after we take a break. But keywords are the things that let me decide what my data entry is going to be. So I have keywords here that say street, apartment, city, province, postal code. Anything on the far left is a keyword. And this is going to make them lowercase so that it will look like your book. I actually got used to doing this in uppercase. So if I set it back to what it used to be, user interface, and I say show them in uppercase, all it's going to do is make all of my keywords uppercase. I'm going to leave mine that way for this course, only because sometimes people get mixed up between a broad category, which is like mailing address, and a keyword. So for me, and to make things clear when I'm giving you instructions, I'm going to leave mine in uppercase. But if you find it easier to read in lowercase, or again, if you want it to look like precisely what it looks like in Inkling, you can change your user interface and make the keywords be lowercase, and that way it will match what you have in your book. Okay, so for ease of me getting through the class and identifying the difference between a keyword and a category of data entry, I'm going to leave mine uppercase for now, but you can choose what works best for you. Okay, we're going to take a break there. So we're going to take probably a 10-minute break just so that we can get a few more people, hopefully to where we need them to be to keep going from here. So we're going to come back at 10:10. If you're still working on downloading and setting things up, let us know in the chat window. You can send a private message if you prefer. And if you are ready to go, take a break, stretch, close your DT Max. We're going to start together all in one set, and we're going to start on our in-class exercise after the break. Okay, we are back. So we're going to do the beginning of this chapter together as a group. Same thing, I'm going to start adding and taking things away. I'm going to ask Nancy to help me with this too. If I add some information and I don't get it typed into the chat window, she can either let me know or she can type it for me. So I'm going to try to keep track of everything all together. We're going to start with the beginning of our exercise. So we're going to go into chapter 16. You're going to see the first thing that happens is in-class exercises. Then you have all of the information in your textbook for how to do what we're going to do today. And then at the bottom, we have practice problems. So we're going to find the one that says in-class exercise first, and we're going to start here. We're always going to have a case of some kind with at least a family of one. So we're going to learn how to do families with just one person in them today. And I will also be showing you how to do split screen so that you can have your data on one side and your DT Max on the other. But we're going to do this slowly and as a group. So if this is going very slow and I'm repeating myself a lot, be kind to your other students, be patient, ask lots of questions if you have lots of questions. So the very first thing we're going to do when we're going to do a case is we have to open DT Max. So let's do that together. Find your DT Max icon if you have one on your window or in your start menu. You're going to click on it. Again, every time you open DT Max, before you do anything, I want you to check the left side. Does it say 2021? Does it say T1 Personal? I say this every year to my students, and then there will always be one day when I'm in an office somewhere and I've been working on files and I open something and I'm not seeing what I want to see because I didn't check my year and I didn't realize that my last client, I'd been working on a different tax year, and then all my data isn't where I thought it was, and I get really stressed, and then I remember I probably didn't check my year. So make it a habit. Every time you run DT Max, just double check year and T1 Personal. Type in your password, which is TA, press enter. You're going to have a blank screen here, which is perfectly fine. Okay. What we have in this screen is information about our clients. So we're starting on the client list screen. We always open to the client list screen first. You're going to notice underneath our toolbar, we have 3 tabs. We have client list, we have data entry, and we have tax return. Now, some of you like to use your keyboard more than your mouse. If you are one of those people, you're going to notice that we have lots and lots of function keys and keywords and hotkeys, things that will let you do things without taking your hand off your keyboard. If you want to know what those are and you hover over it, you'll see client list. If you want to access the client list, you hit F11. Data entry, if you hover your mouse over it, it'll say F2. Tax return, if you hover over it, it'll say F9. So if you have to switch between things, that's how you're going to do it. Now, we can't do that until we have started an actual family. But in our client list, we're going to have information. So we have the client number, name, SIN number, birth date, age, language, home phone number, work phone number. Processing status tells us, has it been e-filed? Is it ready to print? What's going on? Again, I'm going to show you on my screen what I have. I know the words are going to be really small. So when you have your own files, you're going to start to notice them as well. If everything says OK and ready, then your return is good to go. If there's an error that needs to be fixed, it's going to tell you there's an error that needs to be fixed in that section. And then when is the last date you changed something in that file? And that's pretty much all you need to know. I will be teaching you later how to sort and how to search for things, but for right now, we don't have clients to practice that on. So again, I'm going to go here so my screen looks like yours. Okay. The first thing that we're going to want to do is start a return because we want to create a return for Tammy. So when we're starting a return, that's where we're going to use the tools up here above our client list page. So I want you to notice again at the top, if you hover over them, it tells you what they do. We're looking for the person with the plus on it. So there's 3 images of people. We have a family one, and I'm looking for the person with a plus. If you click on that, it's going to say, do you want to add a new client? Yes, we want to add a new client. You're going to notice you have a choice. You can start a new family, or you can add to a current family. Right now, you don't have a current family, so you can't choose that one. We're going to start a new family for Tammy. We say family because when we do returns, we group them together. Even though everyone has an individual tax return, there are credits and things that have to be shared. We have to make decisions for transfers. So we always group our families together in our computer software. So we're going to make a family of 1. It's going to be a family for Tammy. There is also a client number. Every client has a unique client number. In the real world, if you're using your software in an office, those numbers are automatically generated and we can't change them. And to make it even more fun, in the real world, once you start a family, you can't delete that file. There is no way to delete something you did by mistake. It just exists in the computer, and we have to make it inactive and deal with it that way so it doesn't come back to haunt us. In this course, because you're learning, we expect you to make mistakes. You can delete files if you need to. You can also change your client number. I don't recommend that you do that, however. Let it be what it is, because you can't have two clients with the same identifying number. They all have to be unique. So if you try to create a client for a number that already exists, the computer won't let you open that file. And it's going to create problems. So let it create its own number. Whatever number it wants is fine. Then, if you have already clicked ahead, you are not following instructions, don't work ahead. I want you to click the thing that says Use Smart Start. Okay? Very, very important. I'm going to show you all of that again. So we have to create a file for Tammy. Tammy is going to be our new file. We're going to go to the very top. We're going to find the Add a New Client. Add a New Client is the person with the plus, or if you like your hotkeys, it's F3 to add a new client. Click on that or type F3. We want to start a new family. Let the client number be what the client number wants to be, and then make sure you have a check mark where it says Use the Smart Start Input Assistance. When you do, you're going to say OK, and it's going to open up a Smart Start client profile. So if you have gotten that far and your screen is now looking like my screen, give me a green check mark. All right, and we've got a few people who have gotten that far. Excellent. The Smart Start helps us to decide what we want to add and take away in our return. So it's going to give us options. So if, for example, before I even did Tammy's return, I knew that I was going to be doing certain types of data entry, I can choose from here, before I've even done the return in the computer, what data entry I want to add. So I'm going to say, oh, I know that Tammy is going to have some employment expenses, and I know she's also going to have a home buyer's amount. So I can choose whatever additional things I want to add to my tax return in the Smart Start. Now, I'm not going to do that because I don't have that information about Tammy, but you're going to make your decisions in advance before you even open the return so that everything you need is ready and waiting for you to enter. For now, I'd like you to leave it on the defaults. The defaults will be what they are, and you're going to say continue. We're going to come back to the Smart Start menu later. Okay? Now, this is the part where I want to show you how to make your life easier by using split screens. So if you have two computer screens, or if you are a person who likes paper, you can print the cases you're working on paper and put them on your desk and work from your desk to your screen. Or if you're like me and you have two screens, I can put my textbook on one screen and my DT Max on the other screen. But a lot of students aren't going to have that, and it can be really frustrating to click back and forth between things. So what I like to do is split screen. If you want to do that, what I'm going to recommend is you're going to go up to the top right corner, and you're going to see a little set of boxes here. It looks like two boxes on top of each other, and it says Restore Down. If you click on the Restore Down button, it's going to turn your box into a smaller box of some size. You can then drag it to wherever you want it to be, and you can use the arrows on the side to give you about half of the screen. I always put mine on the left. You don't have to put yours on the left. You can if you want to. And while I'm in here, I'm also going to see if I can make this bigger so you can see it. So I'm going to try to make it fill about as big as I can. If you're noticing that your data entry screen is too small for you to read, you can make it bigger using the zoom in and zoom out buttons. Or if you want to do it with the keyboard, hold Control down and hit plus to get bigger, hold Control down and hit minus to get smaller. So you can make your data entry bigger so you can read what's on the screen. As we get older, we start needing bigger text. So we're going to put the DT Max on the left side of the screen, and then I want to go find my inkling information. So I'm going to go pull up my inkling. Sorry, it's going to give me an error when I click out of it. That's not a problem. When I go into my inkling, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to click the Restore Down button, which is that top double box corner here. And then I get my little box over here, and I'm going to put it on the other side of my screen. So for me, I'm going to pull it up this way, pull it out to the right, pull it down to the bottom of my screen so I can see. Now you're going to notice it's not very helpful if I keep my contents open. So I'm just going to click the X to close the contents. I can bring them back if I need them. So if I want to bring them back, I can just click on the little arrows here. That brings my contents up. I can click the X, make them go away. Now I can see what I'm going to type on the right, and I have my workspace on the left. Okay, I'm going to do that one more time just to show you how to do it. So to make everything big again, you can always make it bigger by clicking the same box. It's the Restore Down box. Make it large. All right, and in my case, we have it there. So if I want to do split screen, again, I'm going to go over here. I'm going to choose Restore Down, which is top right corner, two little boxes. That I can pull it around. I can resize it if I want to resize it. Resizing, just hover your cursor over, you're going to see a little arrow. I can drag it to where I want it to be. I want to make sure I can see all of my data entry just for myself, so half a screen works really, really well. And then I can go into my inkling. There's my usual inkling with my table of contents. I can choose Restore Down. I can drag it to where I want it to be on the screen. I can resize it using my little arrow keys until I have half the screen covered. And then I'm going to click the X so that makes the contents go away so I can see what I'm working on. You're going to find what works for you. But for the purposes of the class, I'm going to keep it in this setting as much as I possibly can so you can see the data that I'm using and you can also see the work. Now, on the client information, I want you to notice there are some things that are marked with a star. If it's a red star, it's an absolutely critical thing. You cannot generate a return if you have not put that in. So there are some things here that you cannot create a return without having. You need a last name, you need a first name, you need a birth date, you need a status, you need a sex. And then there are going to be some blue stars. And blue stars are things that the computer would like you to put in because it's important. They need to know this, so you should answer it. Those are the warnings about things you might forget that are going to have an effect on the tax return. So let's start by filling in some of the critical personal information that we have here, okay? So let me make sure that I'm not missing anything with what I need. Okay, I'm going to enter in last name. Last name goes first. Make sure you use the correct capitalization. Whatever you do here is going to go to the CRA and they're going to need to match. So make sure that it matches what their previous information was or what their legal name is. Okay, last name is White. You can click on the box to type in it. So if you're not sure, put your mouse on it, click and type. When you finish typing, you have a couple of options. You can click somewhere else. So if I want to, I can use my mouse. Or you can press the tab button. So the tab button will drop you down to the next line. That way you don't have to keep taking your hand off the keyboard if you want to do really fast data entry. So I've done White is the last name. Tammy is the first name. I'm going to type Tammy in. Then I'm going to hit the tab button for me. Relation in this case is family head. We always have to have a head of the family. We'll talk about that more in another chapter. For now, she's the only family member, so it's the only option we have. Then we get to the SIN number. You do not have to put dashes in. The computer will do that for you. If you put dashes in, you're going to get an error code. We need to enter the social insurance number for Tammy. So make sure the cursor is at the front and you're going to type it in. If you made a mistake and you put the cursor somewhere in the middle, maybe when you clicked on it and you start typing, you're going to notice you're going to get a little dingy sound when you do it, and all the numbers aren't going to be there. So you have to start at the beginning. If you need to, just use your cursor, use your arrow keys or your mouse to go back to the beginning, and you can write over anything you did. So 870-009-594. You're going to notice this is not a real social insurance number because we're using the practice ones. And then we get birth date. Okay. When we get to birth date, and I know I'm going fast, but I will give you all time to catch up, I promise. When we get to birth date, it tells you the format of the birth date. It wants 2 numbers for date, 2 numbers for month, and 4 numbers for year. Every date field in our data entry system will have its own version of the formatting. So if you're not sure whether it's month, day, year, or day, month, year, or year, month, day, which happens sometimes, make sure you look DD for date, MM for month, YYYY means they want 4 digits for the year. I have September 9th, so I'm going to do 09 because I need 2 digits, 09, and then 1989. And you're going to notice I'm not typing any dashes, just the numbers. Once I have that done, I'm going to press tab to the next one. Okay. And what I would like you to do is when you've gotten that far, I would like you to give me a green check mark. So you should have last name White, first name Tammy, leave the relation box alone, type in the SIN number, type in the birth date, 09/09/1989. All right, good. You guys are fast, so we're going to keep going. Now we get to status. Status is marital status. If you're not sure what a keyword means, you can hover your mouse over it, and it will tell you what the keyword means. So when I hover it over, it says status. It wants the marital status as of December 31st of the tax year. The other place where you can get information, if that's not enough, is you can right-click on any keyword. So again, a keyword on my computer is going to be all caps. So when I say keyword, I'm looking for something that's all capital letters. You can right-click on anything, and you can say help. I would like help for this keyword, please. And it will open up another window, and it will tell you information about that line. Some of it will be useful. It will tell you some of the tax rules. So maybe you can't remember a specific rule for something, what counts. So single, if it's common law, what is the tax rule for common law? You have to be in a continuous relationship for 12 months or be living with the parent of your child. So it'll have rules and more information for you there. If you don't need the help, you can pick the red box at the top to make it go away. Anytime you don't know what a keyword is, whether you should use it or not use it, use your help files. They're great. I use them in office all the time. All right, so this one we know is marital status. We know that she's single. We have to put single. You can do this a couple of ways. You can use the drop-down box and then click with your mouse. Or if you prefer, when you get here, so I'm going to do my tabs. If I press enter, sorry, I should have said enter first, it'll bring it up, and then I can hit the first letter that I want to go to. So if I put M for married, if I put S, it'll go to the next S, and I can do a couple of S's and go back and forth. You can use your keys to do it as well. Now be careful. It's very easy to mix up single and separated if you're not being careful. So then when you have the one you want, press enter. I'm going to show you that again because I like to do this with keys as much as possible for me. So I'm going to delete what I put in. When I get to the status box, I'm going to hit enter first to open up my drop-down box. Then I'm going to pick the one that I want, use my arrow keys, or I can use the letter of the name. And when I have the one I want and it's highlighted, I'm going to hit enter again. All right, I want you to do the same thing for sex. You're going to choose, in this case, male or female. Unfortunately, right now our program does not have a non-binary option, but it doesn't matter because remember, you don't actually put male or female on the tax return. I'm going to show you later how to change the designation so that their client is being addressed correctly on the tax return. For our program, we have to pick one. So ask the client which they would prefer, and if they do identify as non-binary, I recommend that you apologize for the fact that our program is old and it has not yet been updated with the third option, and we're still trying to get that fixed. For now, ask them what color they want. Do they want blue or do they want pink? Because if I say female and I hit enter, you're going to notice my screen has switched to pink. So if they don't identify as one or the other, ask them to pick a color, and that's going to be their color. And again, I will show you as we go down how to change the designation on the return later so that they are being identified the way they want to be identified. Brittany, is it being worked on presently? Actually, there's a whole big project in the work that I can't give a whole lot more information about right now, but there are going to be a lot of changes to our software in a year or two. We're still working on some big changes. So lots of things are going to be changing. They haven't changed this particular box, mostly because of everything else that's happening. Yeah, and it is important to our clients, and we do have to be sensitive to them. And so, I mean, I find myself apologizing for our program all the time, or even for the Tax Income Act itself all the time. As long as they know that you are aware and conscious of it, they will appreciate that you're doing everything you can. And again, I will show you how to make sure that they are being identified correctly on the first page of the tax return. That's what's being sent to the government. We don't send data entry to the government. We send a tax return to the government. So as long as the tax return says what they want, we're doing the right thing for our clients. All right, you're going to notice that has cleared my red boxes, but I still have a blue box here, and this one says Metropolitan. It's asking me, because I'm in Manitoba, it's asking me what my metropolitan is. Now, you might not have Manitoba already preset as your province of residence. If you didn't update your preferences, the default is usually Alberta. If I had a different province here, I'm going to pick one that I know is going to be different data entry. You're going to notice there is no metropolitan area in BC. That box disappears. So when you choose boxes, it's going to change your data entry. If I pick Alberta, I have metropolitan, but I have choices, Calgary, Edmonton, and Lethbridge. If I pick Ontario and I have CMA, I'm going to have lots of different CMAs. What is the computer asking for when it wants metropolitan area? Why does it want to know your metropolitan area? Excellent. Climate action incentive. So if you're in Winnipeg, or if your client is in Winnipeg, you're going to pick CMA Winnipeg. If you're not in Winnipeg, you're going to pick the other one. That's going to change their Schedule 14. So we're going to show you that when we get to the tax return, how it affects the Schedule 14. You don't have to pick it. What will the default be? If you pick nothing, what will the computer assume? It will assume that you are in Winnipeg and your clients do not get extra money. The default is that you do not get more money for this particular credit. So that's important. By doing your data entry, you are making choices. If you're in Manitoba, I want you to actively choose this. Most of the time I say don't make unnecessary data entry. This is one where I say, please do make sure you have addressed whether they're in Winnipeg or not. Especially if you're in Winnipeg, make the choice, because we do hundreds of returns for people who live in the CMA, and then a handful of returns for people who don't. And if we're going quickly and we're under pressure in tax season and we're not thinking about climate action incentive, we miss credits for our clients because we get so used to not clicking that box. So as I'm doing a return for a client who's not in Winnipeg, I'm going through and I hit that box and I think, wait a minute, they're not in Winnipeg, and then I give them things. So for this example, Brittany, do it for where you are. If you are in Winnipeg, then Tammy is in Winnipeg. If you are outside Winnipeg, Tammy is outside Winnipeg. I want you to do the one that you're going to be practicing because I want you to get used to doing it all the time. I promise I will give you all of the possible results. So if I'm going to show you both the result on the tax return in Winnipeg and the result out of Winnipeg. Okay, so we're not done yet. We need some information for our client. We need a phone number. Remember, phone numbers do not show up on tax returns. Why do we need a phone number for our client? so that we can call them. So I want you to remember when you do data entry, some of the data entry is going to go on the tax return, and some of the data entry is just for us to keep so that we can contact our client. So for the purposes of this course, your phone number has to make sense. So pick an area code. You're going to notice it's XXX in data entry and in the Inkling. Make sure you pick one that works for you. In Manitoba, it's usually 204 or 431. We can do 431 just to be fun. I want you to notice again, do not put brackets or dashes or anything like that. Just type the numbers in because it will do the formatting for you. So I'm going to type in the phone number with an area code that makes sense, and then I'm going to hit tab or click on the next box. It's going to open a new set of data entry. So it's going to give me the main phone number, and then if I have a client with multiple phone numbers and I want to reach multiple phone numbers, I can do that. I want you to notice here, we have a little extra thing that's happened. When we open a new section of data entry, everything connected to that is going to be inside these dotted lines. So on the left, we now have a little icon with a G on it. I can click on that G and I can collapse it, and I can click on it again to open it up. So if I want some extra lines, maybe she has a cell phone number, which is almost the same, I can put it in there, and then if I collapse it, it's going to give me just the 2 lines that I need so that I can see everything in one way, but I can also open it back up again. Now, if I don't want to have a cellular number, I can delete it. There are a couple of different ways to delete things. You can highlight the whole thing and hit the delete key, or this is a good one to practice. You're definitely going to be deleting things. You're going to click on the keyword somewhere. So again, my keywords are all caps. You're going to click somewhere on the keyword so that it's selected. In this case, it's going to be highlighted in dark pink. Then I'm going to right-click somewhere in the dark pink. I don't want to click in the box. I want to right-click on the left of the box. And when I right-click, I have a choice to delete this keyword. That's going to delete just the line I'm working on. Try not to delete extra things. Delete one thing at a time. And if you like hotkeys, you can do Control and Backspace. So if I go here, I can do Control Backspace to delete it, and it's going to make it go away. And then if it's collapsed, and my client says, oh, and I actually have another number, you can reach me on that one too. If I want to get the data boxes back, I'm just going to click on the little G on the left, and that opens it up again for me. Okay. So we have most of her personal information in, but we're not finished because we also have to do a mailing address. How do we get to the mailing address? Well, hopefully you used your Smart Start. If you didn't select Smart Start and you opened it up, you might find that things look a little different. So I'm going to turn everything off here, and you're going to have very few boxes and not a lot of options. If your screen looks like this, I want you to go up to the top where you have a little traffic light, a red light and a green light, and that's your Smart Start sections. Please turn that back on. It's really, really hard to do a tax return without having the Smart Start. You need to memorize all your keywords in order to get things into the return, and that would take hours. So we're going to use our traffic light. If you notice that you don't have the data entry you want to see, click on that traffic light, and it's going to bring your headings back. Okay. So how do we get to the address? Well, you're going to notice on the left we have categories here. We have mailing address, we have employment income, and so on. I would like you to open up the mailing address for me. You're going to click the plus sign. So wherever it says a section we want to open, click on the plus sign on the left, and it's going to open up the address. I want you to notice it has another blue star. You cannot file a tax return without a valid postal code. There must be a valid postal code to match. If you don't have one, there will be an e-file error. So we need a postal code, and it has to match the province that we are using as a mailing address. So they have to make sense. So we're going to put some information in for Tammy. We're going to put the street first, 1919 Bathurst Street. If you hit the tab button or you click out, you're going to notice it opens up some more options. If there's apartment numbers, make sure you've included the apartment number, because if you don't put the apartment number and there are 11 floors in her apartment building, she's not going to get her mail from the CRA. It's going to go to the building and not to the right person. So make sure if there's an apartment number, you've entered it. If there's a PO box number, you can enter it here. If you have someone with a rural route, so they have an RR number, you can put the RR number in as well. You can also put all that information in the top. So for example, if I wanted to do it with the apartment number here, I could just do this and that would have the same effect on the tax return. I do that when it's an unusual apartment number. So if it's not an apartment, but it's a suite and it has to say suite and it can't say apartment, you can put everything you need in the street address. You have to have a street address line. If you don't have a street address line, you're going to get a warning and it's not going to work. So you have to have something in there. If you have a client who only has a PO box, you're going to put it in street. If the only thing they have is a PO box. If they have a street number and a PO box, then you're going to use street. And I know that sounds a bit weird. It's just because for our data entry, every box we have, everything inside the G with the dotted line, the first one has to have data in it. So the data that I'm going to put, again, 1919 Bathurst Street with the apartment number. Be extra careful, you've got it right. And now I need a postal code that matches. If I put the wrong postal code in, I'm going to get a warning that's going to tell me that doesn't make sense. So you get warnings all the time. If you want to know where I got that from, up at the top corner, if I've done something that I wasn't supposed to do, I'm going to have a little caution symbol here. That's telling me any number of different things, and we're going to spend a lot of time on that warning box. Sometimes it tells me I made a mistake that it knows that I made. Sometimes it's going to tell me I didn't put data in that it thinks I should have put in. Sometimes it's going to tell me that doesn't make sense to me. Can you double check your number? So the warnings are going to tell me, take a look at this line. It's important. Okay. And Brittany, the nice thing about the warning box, you're right, it's going to be after you all the time. It makes sure you don't make mistakes. So it's a really good tool of, did I do everything I need to do? So you're going to click on the warning. You're going to notice it says, oh, the province and postal code number are inconsistent. They don't make sense. If it's a Manitoba address, it shouldn't be a P. If I double click on the warning, it's going to take me to the section in my data entry that it wants me to fix. Then I can hit close and I can say, oops, that wasn't supposed to be a P. That was supposed to be an R. Put my box there, and you're going to notice my warning has disappeared. And now I can generate a basic tax return and see what it looks like. Okay. I want to show you a few more warnings and what they look like. So let's say I was not being careful and I did not put in a last name. Let me see if it will let me delete the last name. I think it won't. Okay, let me do this one instead. There we go. I'm going to take the first name out. And let's say I didn't put a street number in. And I didn't do metropolitan area. So if I've left a couple of blanks, if I have been careless, you don't have to do this, you can just watch me do it. If I've been careless with my data entry and I go to my warnings, it's going to give me different types of errors. So one of the errors, or two of them in this case, have circles with a red X. If I have a circle with a red X, I do not have a tax return. I cannot generate a tax return until I fix that. So it will tell me, you have a problem. We're not even going to show you what a tax return would look like. You don't have a tax return, fix it. Then you have the warnings that are saying, please do something about this. And some of them are going to say missing. Some of them are going to say incomplete. And then they're going to tell you what's missing and what's incomplete. So now I can go, oh, I missed a few things. Again, every time I have a warning, if I double click on the warning, it's going to take me to the box that I'm in. Now I'm already in the first name, and I can just type in Tammy and fix it. I want my next warning. What did I do? Missing for metropolitan area. I'm going to click on that one. It's going to take me to the metropolitan area line and say, please fill this in. I go, oh, wait, where was she? She was in Winnipeg. Okay, there we go. Then I'm going to go down here and go, what else am I missing? I don't have a street. Oops, I forgot to put the street in. Double click on my warning. Takes me to my box, put a cursor in the box, and I can do 1919 Bathurst Street. I'm going to get really good at spelling Bathurst. I think that's the 4th time I've typed it today. And that's filled in. And notice, when I've done everything I need to do, my box is grayed out. I have no more warnings. I want you to get into the habit of clearing all your warnings before you do a tax return. So at this point, you should have Tammy White, SIN number, birth date, all of her personal information up to the mailing address, and nothing in your warnings boxes. If that's true, give me a green check mark. If you have a warning, let me know what the warning is. So if it says RAC, that's probably because you haven't done the preferences thing because you were still getting loaded in. For now, I'm going to say ignore that warning, but then next class, you should be able to do that. So I'm going to show you how to make that warning kind of appear. I go in here and I leave those boxes, those two, and I hit save and I go out and I go back in. It should generate a warning for me, except I think it won't because I'm in the program. Okay, so if you have those warnings, make sure you change your preferences and that should fix it for you. And take them out. If those are the only warnings you have for right now, you're okay. But for next class, make sure you've gone through what we did at the very beginning and taken the preferences out. Okay. Everybody else, we're okay. We can now generate a tax return if we want to. So how do we generate a tax return? In this case, I'm going to make my screen big so you can see it a little bit better. You have different options for getting to the tax return section. The most efficient way of doing it is going to be calculating a tax return. You can go into Tools and you can say Recalculate Current Client, or you can use your hotkeys Alt F9. You can also just click on the tax return tab. It works most of the time to generate a tax return, but if you've just done a recent change and you haven't saved the recent change, it may not update it without recalculating. So if you did do a change and you're not seeing it, go back to the data entry screen and recalculate your client. You can do Alt F9 or you can do Tools, Recalculate Client. I'm going to do Alt F9 for now. It's going to take a minute and it's going to give me a tax return for Tammy. Okay. It starts with some things you haven't seen before. It starts with an executive summary. The next page is a critical page I want you to notice. We're going to come back to this page later, but this is our notes and diagnostics. This is going to tell us everything we should be paying attention to. Right now, it's going to say ineligible for e-file because we're in a student program. We can't e-file anything. So it's always going to say e-file setup. It may have some other lines. When we get to those ones, we'll talk about it. For now, I want you to not worry about it. But if you had a warning that was not a red X warning, that warning is going to show up here as well. So I want to show you that. If I had done that thing that I did before where I did not put CMA in, now I have a warning and I haven't cleared my warning and I go to the tax return, the first thing that happens is my warning is going to pop up. It's going to say, oops, you didn't clear your warnings. You have a problem. I'm going to say, ignore that. I don't care. I'm going to do it later. I'm going to say, continue calculating. And now when I get to my notes and diagnostic, it's also put the warning right at the top there. So the computer is going to constantly tell me that I did not do what I should do, and I really should fix it. Your goal in this course is to calculate a return and have nothing pop up. So I'm going to fix it now, and then I'm going to calculate the return, and you're going to see it go straight through, and my warning is clear. I don't have a big caution symbol telling me to do something at the top of my notes and diagnostics. We're going to talk about the other things here later, but for now, let's go down to the tax return and make sure the first page says what we want. I want you to notice we picked female and single for Tammy. The default is Ms. We've given her a title of Ms. Tammy White. So the next thing I'll show you is how to change those titles if we want to change the titles. We also have her mailing address. It's put the apartment in, so make sure the apartment is showing up for you. It's put the postal code in. Her SIN number and date of birth are filled in. It says single. It says English. Her residence is Manitoba because we chose Manitoba as the province of residence. Remember that what you have in your data entry, mailing address is this box here. Province of residence in the identification section at the very top is Manitoba. So I could have province of residence Alberta for a tax return, and then the mailing address is Manitoba, but the province of residence is Alberta. And now you're going to notice I have Alberta forms on the left-hand side instead of Manitoba forms. So as you're doing a return, if you notice that your forms are wrong, go back and look at this page. And if that is wrong, you're going to have to go here and find province of residence and fix it. Okay, so hopefully you've all got everything you need there. Are there any questions at this point? Okay. So how do we get back to where we were before? You can go back to the data entry by clicking on the data entry tab if you now want to put more information in, or you can press F2, whichever one you prefer. You may want to start a list of hotkeys that you like. Brittany, if they don't want their email to be used, do we put it in the data entry? We do. So that's a good point. Let me do that for you. So she did have an email address. So we're going to go into email here, and you're going to type the email in, tammywhite@blackmail.com. Some clients get really stressed if they see a capital there. Email addresses are not case sensitive. I could do all caps, I could do all lowercase, it wouldn't make a difference. But if your client is frustrated and they want it to be small, just take your cursor back to the beginning and change it, and it will make it small. It's just one of those little details where the default is the first one is capitalized. It doesn't make a difference. Once I do the email, that's going to be for my personal information. That's going to tell me that I can contact that client by email if I want to. If she wants to do email on her tax return, if she wants to sign up for my account and have everything sent through my account, that's what this one is, email condition. If I leave it blank, the default will be that she is not signing up for online mail, which is good. We don't want that to be something that everybody does. So the default is leave it blank and don't put anything in. If I go to the tax return for Tammy now, and I go to the first page, you're going to notice that there's no email address registering her to receive things through the CRA, even though I entered an email address. If she wants to sign up for online mail, I need to make a choice. And that's going to be the email condition line. And again, if you're not sure what the keyword does, hover over it. So email condition says choose to receive the notice of assessment and notice of reassessment online. If she wants to, I can say yes. If I say yes and I go to the tax return, then it's going to put her address in. So again, if you don't have to do data entry, you don't have to go in and choose no. I recommend that because it's really easy to be doing a drop-down box and you mean to do no, and then your cursor bumps a little bit and you accidentally hit yes, and now you've signed your client up for something you don't want to do. It's a lot easier just to not do it at all and let the default be the default. So don't touch that box unless they want to sign up. If they want to sign up, make the box say yes. If they don't want to sign up, delete the box and let the default be no. All right, but I did say that there are some times where Tammy may not want to be a Ms. Maybe Tammy is a doctor and wants to use her title. Maybe Tammy is non-binary and doesn't want to identify as male or female on the return. We can change those defaults, and to do that, we're going to use our Smart Start. Okay, so again, when we want to get back into the Smart Start, we had it pop up originally. Now we have to access it again. You're going to go up to your toolbars in the top here, and you're going to find this time the one that looks like a little checklist. So it's a red square with white and then red check marks on it. You're going to click on that. And when you click on that, you have the option now of two different boxes that I want you to tick. I want you to tick the one that says Other Personal Data. And when you tick that one, you're going to see what is included in that. So it has a keyword called title. It has a keyword called care of. It has a whole bunch of other things here. And then I'm also going to click the one that says guardian legal representative only because I know I'm going to talk about that one next. So I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to do it again and show you how it works. If you want to get into your Smart Start, you're going to go up here. You can press Alt F3 or just click on the little Smart Start icon. It looks like a little checklist. I want you to tick the one that says Other Personal Data and the one that says Guardian or Legal Representative and hit Continue. And you're going to notice it's going to open up some new sections in the bottom here. If you open up Other Personal Data, click on the plus, you're going to have some options in here. The first one will be title. Title by default is Mr. for people who identify as male. They will have blue on their return. Ms. or Ms. for people who identify as female and not married. Mrs. for people who identify as female and married, and that's the default. If that's not what your client wants, you can put a different title in here. I might want MX, for example. For someone who is non-binary, they don't want to identify as Mr. or Ms. We're going to put MX. If I go to the tax return now, you're going to see that Tammy White has MX instead of Ms. Okay? Or maybe Tammy has a doctorate and wants to be doctor. I can put DR for doctor, go to the tax return, and there's Dr. Tammy White. So that's how we're going to change the title. We can leave it blank if they don't want to change it. If they're happy with whatever the default is, leave it blank. If they're not happy with whatever it is, that's where you're going to change it. Okay. There's a couple other ones in here we're going to come back to. If they're a first-time filer, we have to tell the CRA they're a first-time filer because the CRA does not have a record with them yet. So when they go to match with the CRA, it's not going to match with anything, and you're going to get an e-file error. So if you have someone who's filing for the very first time, you're going to choose first year. You're going to see it says first year filing a tax return, and you're going to say yes. If it's not her first year filing a tax return, which is not, you're going to delete that and leave it blank. So this is one where you're going to say yes if it's yes, you're going to leave it blank if it's no. We're not going to go in and put no for every client. It would take too long if we had to do that. Okay. And Helene, it used to be that if it's your first year, you couldn't e-file, you had to paper file. Yep. But now you can e-file, but you have to click the box to make it happen. Okay. We do run into a problem for people where it's their first year filing and they've lost all their tax slips because we can't autofill a return and download tax slips if they have never filed a return before. So that is fun. I've had that happen. There was a client who had never filed before, had worked in Newfoundland, I think, for the first year, for the first part of the year, and then moved to Manitoba, and they had lost all of their T4s. And we couldn't just go into ReproClient and look them up because they didn't exist in ReproClient. They didn't exist in Autofill My Return. They actually had to either contact their employer and get copies of the T4, or they have to send a paper request into the CRA with their identifying information and then wait for them to mail it back to them. And that took quite a few months, and they couldn't file the return until they had their T4s. Now, if you have a client who hasn't filed for a couple of years and you have some of the slips for now and you don't have slips for the other years, you can file with the ones you have. So file with a complete return. Make sure you have everything for that year. Once you file 1 year, now you can do ReproClient and you can access the old files, the old T4s. Okay, so hopefully we all have Tammy. We have the mailing address. I want to show you one more thing here, which is what happens if Tammy is not filing her own tax return. Tammy might have a legal guardian, a legal rep. If Tammy has a guardian or legal representative, then we need to make sure the computer knows that the information is being completed by someone who isn't Tammy White. So that's where we're going to use two sections here. We need the guardian or legal representative section and the other personal data section. This is in your textbook. I recommend highlighting it. It is very common that we will see on occasion a client who needs to have someone else file the return for them. Maybe it's for an elderly parent who can't come into the office and sign things themselves, so they'll have a power of attorney. If they have a power of attorney, we have to read the power of attorney first and make sure that they are authorized to file tax returns for them. Then we're going to find out who it is. So I'm going to assume in this case that Tammy has a power of attorney that she's given to her brother, whose name is Alpaslin White, which I'm going to type in the chat window for you there. We want the mail to go to Alpaslin and be opened by Alpaslin. Let's say Tammy is going to be out of the country for 6 months and isn't going to be around to deal with things herself, so she's given a limited power of attorney to her brother. I'm going to say care of Alpaslin White, and at this point, I would be going in and changing the mail address to Alpaslin's mail if that's where they want this set of returns to go. So if Alpaslin is going to Tammy's house and picking up Tammy's mail, we don't need to change it. But if Alpaslin is going to be the one receiving mail at their house, then we're going to change the mailing address to the address of the legal guardian and not Tammy's address. Okay. Then I have to say legal representative, and I'm going to say yes. And now it's going to ask me for more information. So White, Alpaslin. I don't need to put anything else in here, but if I want to keep some more information, I can put more information in. It's not going to change the tax return. Everything else in here is just for me. Realistically, we tend to keep this information here, phone number, as the person we're going to be contacting. So I wouldn't necessarily put Tammy's phone number if I'm never going to be dealing with Tammy. If Tammy is always going to have a legal representative, in that case, I would make sure all the data that I collect is for the legal representative, and that's going to do that. Now, if you've put that in, congratulations. It is good to practice. It's going to change some things on the tax return. I want to show you a few things on the tax return that will change. First of all, and you may not have this on yours, you can see we have an authorization page, which has to be signed. Normally, it would be signed by the taxpayer. So Tammy would be here, and the person signing it would be Tammy. But because I put legal rep and I said yes, now the return is going to be signed by Alpaslin. And I'm going to show you one more. You do not have to do this. I'll be showing you this in more detail later. But if I'm going to say, I'm going to do a signature electronically, we have a form called an e-file authorization form. Every client who wants to e-file has to sign this form. It's going to have Tammy at the top, and normally it would have to have Tammy's information here. So Tammy would sign, but because Alpaslin is legal rep, I would have Alpaslin as the legal rep on this form as well. So the name on the form has to match the return you're filing. If Tammy is not signing the form, then Tammy's name cannot show up here. It has to be someone else. Marisa, do I keep a copy of the POA on file? I do. So I always have one in my file, and the client has to keep it as well. All right, so I'm going to go back now, and I'm going to take all of that out. So I'm going to go into legal rep. You can delete multiple pages. Marisa, do they have to be notarized? They have to be legally executed. So powers of attorney are generally signed by a lawyer or notary, and we have to read them to make sure that they actually do what they want. Do we have to see the original? No, but we have to make sure that it was completely executed correctly. So we have to make sure we've seen all of the pages. We have to read the pages, make sure they're all appropriately initialed and signed and things like that. Okay, and it's really fun if they've named 2 legal reps, you have to have both of them in. So if I have 2 legal reps, I will show you this. We're going to come back to it later, but it might be Alpaslin White and another person. So if it's the other person, maybe it's Betty White and Alpaslin. Then I would do Betty White and White Alpaslin, and I would have, how does this one work? Betty, I can't remember how to do this one off the top of my head. Yeah, so in that case, you're going to put Alpaslin as the first name, and then Alpaslin's last name, and then Betty, and then White. And then you would have Alpaslin White and Betty White are signing the e-file authorization, and they are both signing the legal rep for this. And now I have to have 2 signatures on every page. I can't just have one unless it says that I can only, that one of them has signing authorization. If there's 2 executors named or 2 powers of attorney named, You have to have all of them. If you have 3, you need 3. If you have 5, you need 5. And Marisa, if it says or on the power of attorney, I only need 1. So then I can do the one that's in front of me. Most of the time it says and. If it says and, I need all of them or we can't file. Okay, so I'm now going to delete all of that. If you want to delete multiple fields, I want you to click on the bottom one first so that it's highlighted. Hold the shift button down and click on the top box in that section. Make sure you're staying within the bar here. So you want to stay within the solid bar. Hold shift down, click on the top one. You're going to notice it's going to highlight multiple fields. Now I can right click on top of the keyword where the dark pink highlighting is, and I can now say delete multiple keywords. So this time I'm going to do Alt and backspace. I'm going to click delete marked keywords, and that's going to delete everything that's highlighted. I will say be careful when you do this, because if you accidentally highlighted other things, it's going to delete everything you tell it to delete, and you may not have wanted to delete those things. So if you're not sure what you've selected, just do it line by line. But if you know for sure that everything is in one group and you don't have anything else selected, then you can delete all. Okay. We're going to take a short break here. I want everyone to get to the same place. So I'm going to take out my care of line. I'm going to leave the personal information. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do some tax slip data entry next. Okay, we are going to jump into the next sections here. I want you to notice again, when we're working on the program, we have a lot of defaults, things that the computer has already made decisions for you. So if you go to the tax return, I want you to look at the second page of the tax return. If you want to go between pages on the tax return, I should have mentioned this before, you can find on the left-hand side we have a table of contents where you can select whatever you want to look at. So if I want to look at the second page of a tax return, I'm going to go down my list until I see T1 Federal page 2. I can click on that and I can jump right to where I want to be. You can also scroll up and down. If you have a mouse wheel, you can use your mouse wheel, or you can use the dragging button on the right side. What is the default for the elections question for Tammy? The default is that she's a Canadian citizen and she wants to sign up and she wants to sign up for Elections Canada, update the National Register of Electors. That is the default. If you do nothing, that is what the computer will decide for you. Good. What is the default for the T1135 for the foreign property? If you do nothing, the computer will say, no, you don't have foreign property. That might not be true, so we should ask. All right, so I'm going to ask Tammy, are you a Canadian citizen? And do you want to sign up for the National Register of Electors? If she says yes to both of those questions, I don't need to do anything. If she says no, I do need to do something. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here, and now I'm going to use my Smart Start again, or if you like, you can also use keywords. If you know you're looking for one specific thing really quickly and you know what that keyword is, you can just type in a keyword. So I'm going to do keywords first, and then I'm going to show you where it is on the Smart Start. To use a keyword, you want to find the little key icon with the plus symbol, or you're going to use F11. Now, I'm not really a hotkey person. I like to use my mouse, and I like to tab and things like that. But I will say F11 is one that I have memorized because I use this one a lot. When I'm doing returns, there's always 1 or 2 little pieces of data I have to get to really quickly, and I have those keywords memorized. So you can click on the key with the plus. Not to be confused with find a keyword or keyword help. That's not going to help you out. If you want to add a keyword, you want to create some data, you're going to click on Add Keyword F11. Then it's going to ask you for the keyword, and I want you to type in the word elect. You don't need to know the whole keyword. You just need part of it. And then you're going to hit OK or Enter. And it's going to take you to a keyword called elections, which is really nice. And now in the drop-down box, I can choose Canadian citizen, not a Canadian citizen. That's going to put no for the question. Or I can say Canadian citizen election no. Again, if the answer is Canadian citizen and election yes, please don't do any data entry. It's really easy to hit a drop-down box wrong. The default is the default. Let the default be what it is. But in this case, I want you to choose Canadian citizen election no. She is a Canadian citizen. She does not want to sign up for the National Register of Electors. Okay, there we go. Now, what if Tammy has a T1135? How will we deal with a T1135? We have to create a T1135. So remember how I said you can use keywords for that, you can use keywords for that, or you can use the Smart Start. If I'm using the Smart Start, you're going to find I now have elections picked, and it's gray because I've used it. So if I tried to take it away, it would delete data. It won't let me do that. But if I want to collapse the other sections that I don't need, I can make them go away, or I can leave them back in, depending on what I want to do. If I want a T1135, you're going to go down and you're going to keep going until you find T1135. It's going to tell you the keyword foreign info, or if I don't want to use the Smart Start and I'm being lazy, I can do keyword and type in T1135. Now, some of the keywords are easy and they're going to work really well. Some of the keywords are not easy and they're going to be very, very complicated. So if you know the keyword, this is the safe way of doing it. If you don't know the keyword, you might find yourself opening things you didn't mean to open and you don't know what they do. So what I will say, if you're going to use keywords, keep a list of common keywords that you like. Just use the ones you know. So this is going to take me, and I have the choice now of simplified or detailed. So I have to find out what Tammy's information is. So we're going to be doing some additional information here. And I'm going to tell you that Tammy has a property that she acquired in another place. And I need to find my notes on that. She owns a piece of land in California with a cost of $240,000 Canadian. Okay. There we go. In this case, should I pick simplified or detailed? What do you think? I don't know what the current value of the property is, but I know what she bought it for. Are we doing a detailed T1135 or simplified? We're doing simplified because it's just under the max. Here, when you make your first selection, it's going to give you different information. So if I click foreign info and I pick simplified, it's going to close a whole bunch of things, and it's going to ask me to do one thing at a time. The first question is, do I want to do a T1135? And if the answer is yes, I'm going to say, yes, I do. It's going to have some red stars. Remember, if you have a red star, you can't generate a return until you answer those questions. And it's going to warn you about some information it wants you to put in. So let's start. Individual code, select the individual code. If you don't know what the individual code is, this is where your help is really nice. Help for the keyword tells you option 1 means you are self-employed because we just have Tammy. Option 2 is you are not self-employed. Tammy is not self-employed. So we're going to pick option 2. Property type, we have land in California. We're going to pick real property. And after you pick that, it's going to open another box that says property type again, because she might have had more than one type of property. She might have had land and a bank account and some shares. It's going to keep opening lines until you've selected all the boxes you want to select. We need to do country code. In this case, it's in California. You're going to notice United States is at the top because it's the most common one we see. After that, it's in alphabetical order. So if it's right at the top, I can just pick that one. If I had another country, because she had land in California and a bank account somewhere else, I'm going to get a second country code up to 3, because we can do the 3 top ones. And I'm not done. So what do my blue stars say? I'm missing income and I'm missing gain or loss. So I have to ask her now, what is your income from your property? Are you renting the land to anyone? And she's going to say, no, I have no income from the property. You have to enter a 0. Put a 0 in, and the little star will go away. And the warning for that one will go away. So when I go up there, my warning no longer has missing income. Still has missing gain or loss. I'm going to ask her, did you sell any land from a foreign place last year? She's going to say no. If she didn't sell the land, what will her gain or loss be? This is where we need the tax theory to go along with the data entry. If she didn't sell any, then her gain or loss is also going to be 0, so I need to enter 0. And now my warnings are gone except for one of them. The warning that is left is telling you you need to file this return. So I will show you that in a minute. I want to look at the return, but every time you go in, you're going to get that warning until you've done a thing. That's a good warning. That's telling you don't forget to do something important. So I'm going to say continue calculating. And now on her identification page, I have yes, Canadian citizen, no for elections, yes for a T1135, and I have a T1135 completely filled out. I have her name, she's an individual, social insurance number, code 2. It's going to fill the year in for you. You don't have to do it because she's an individual. It has to be the calendar year. The computer will do that for you. It's going to match her mailing address to the tax return, so that's going to look the same. It's going to choose box A because it's less than $250,000. You should read your form anyway to make sure you haven't missed something. It's going to fill in real property because we chose real property. It's going to fill in USA. It's going to put 0 and 0. And then the next page is blank, and then it's going to have a signature page. Okay. When we go to notes and diagnostics, we're also going to have a warning there telling us, make sure you file it. So if you want to file it, when we file a return, we go to the e-file button. We're going to have an option that is grayed out right now, which is transmit and receive. When you file a tax return, you hit the transmit and receive button. But you're not done because you filed a tax return, but you haven't filed a T1135. There's a new button here for T1135. You have to send it separately. After you send it, you're going to tell the computer, yes, I sent it. It's good. I did it. I did the thing. Notes and diagnostics is the first page you look at for every tax return you generate. It's the last page you look at before you e-file. So I'm going to go do my e-filing. I'm going to go here. There's a warning saying do the T1135. I'm going to send the T1135. Then I go back to the data entry. I'm going to pick the first line where it says foreign info. I'm going to click on it so it's highlighted. And I want to clear my warning. And I do that by saying, thank you for reminding me, computer, I did the thing. And you're going to hit the equals button. And you're going to notice there's a little green check mark. That's going to make my warning go away. The computer said, warning, 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 don't forget to file your T1135. When I have filed my T1135, I go back here and I go, yes, I did it. Put a little check mark on it. Okay. You can also do the check mark by right-clicking and say tag keyword for checked OK. And I can make the check mark go away by clicking on it again. And now my warning is back. And it's going to be there until I file it. And once I file it, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to say, yep, I did it. So I would like you to do that. Now, if her property had not been $240,000, I'm going to tell you this, but I'm not going to say do it. I want you to leave what you have in here, add the California land as it is. If it had not been simplified, if it had been detailed, I would have a different set of data. So I'm going to go in and delete all of this, and I'm going to show you how it looks different if you're doing the detailed method. So if you're in the wrong statement, you're going to get different boxes. So I want to do a detailed statement. I'm going to say yes. Now it's going to ask for the total cost of all specified foreign property, and I have to choose less or more. I'm always going to choose more. I do simplified if I can do simplified. Individual code is still there. That's the same. Property type, if I'm going to do real property because it's land, you're going to notice I have more things I need to fill in. Now I need to put a description of the property. So I'm going to put California land. I need the country code. USA is at the top. I need the max amount. Let's assume that the cost value is actually $260,000. If she didn't sell it, she still has $260,000. And make sure I have the right number of zeros. Okay. I don't have to put the decimal places in. It will do that for me. Income is 0. Gain or loss is 0. If she had another one, I would have to do another one. My warning is still there because I have to send the T1135, but before I do, I want to look at it. So I'm going to continue calculating. And now when I go here, I have specified property is more than 250,000, and I'm going to have my California land filled in. Every one you select is going to have different data entry. So if I'm doing land, it's going to ask for the maximum cost during the year and the cost at the end. If I'm doing a bank account, it's going to ask for the maximum funds and the funds held at the end. If I'm doing interest in a non-resident trust, it's going to say income received. It's going to fill in each box that I need. So by making the selection, you are deciding what your data entry is going to look like. So if you have to do T1135 that's complicated, if you want to go back now and practice a T1135 using the data we did in our T1135 practice class, you can pretend that Tammy actually had the same things that we had in that class and see if you can make your data entry match what you're doing. So that's the way to practice it. Now, that's not true. I'm going to take this back out again, and I'm going to make it what it should be so that we all have the same data. I'm going to do a T1135 simplified. I'm going to say yes. Code is 2, property type is real, country code is USA, income is 0, this is 0, and once I e-file it, I put the check mark, my warnings are clear. Good question. How do I do the multiple delete? You're going to click on the bottom of your box, so anything within the dotted line or the solid line under the G, click on the bottom one so that it's highlighted, hold shift down, click on the top one. It's going to highlight everything that you've entered. And then on top of the keyword where it's highlighted, you're going to right click and say delete marked keywords or alt backspace. Okay. I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to clear my marks because I want to leave that in. And you guys are going to get to practice this a whole lot. Okay, so we've done the first 2 pages of the tax return. We're not finished yet because we have more information for Tammy. She does have some income. We have a T4. Now, if you find it really hard to read, you can make it bigger by clicking on the T4 slip and then kind of zooming until it's as big as you need to see. If you have a good screen like me, you'll be able to read it directly off of here. Okay. We're going to do T4s today, and we're going to do other income that is connected to employment. So I want to start with a T4 for Skyline Restaurant. And notice if it says YP, it means your province. We're going to do it for the province that we're in. For us, that's Manitoba. So how do we enter a T4 slip? Well, if you notice when you go down on your regularly selected things, this is a default. It will assume that most clients you're completing for will have employment income. So it's already going to be there. You don't need to look for the keyword. You're going to click on employment income. T4, you need to identify the company first, because if your client has more than one T4, when you're going back through your data, you need to make sure you can find it. So I'm going to put Skyline Restaurant, and I'm going to put 24,500 in box 14. Box 14 is the first box that's there. Once I put that in, if there's decimal places, I'm going to enter them. If not, I can just leave the blank one. It's going to open up the rest of the form. And it's going to ask for the province of employment. Province of employment, in this case, Manitoba. Again, if you want to do it the really quick way and you don't like waiting for it, when you get into this box, you're going to press Enter, M, and Enter again. And that will be a fast way of doing it rather than the slow way, which is to do the drop-down box. You're going to find what works for you. You're going to notice these boxes are not necessarily in order, but they are in the order of the most common ones. So my next box I need is a box 16. I can do 1144.5. Then I can tab out, and it will turn it to 2 decimal places for me. It's asking for a box 18, 387.1. If it's not there, don't put zeros. I cannot stress that enough. If the box is blank, do not enter a 0. Leave it alone. So box 20 is blank, box 52 is blank. I'm just going to use my arrow keys up and down, or my tab key to go up and down to where I want to be. Then I have a box 22. For Manitoba, the box 22 is 2592.96. Then we get to box 24 and 26. This is important. If you learn nothing else from today, I want you to know this. Do not enter box 24 and 26 unless they are different from box 14 or the maximum. So if box 14 and box 24 and box 26 match, you're going to leave them blank. If they are the maximum, you're going to leave them blank. Other than that, you're going to type it in. And that's because the computer is better at data entry than we are. The computer will assume that they match box 14 unless we say otherwise. This is really important because we make mistakes when we're typing. So if I was manually entering them and I did this and I missed a 0, what would happen to my tax return for Tammy when I calculate her EI allowable credit? If I've accidentally said that her max earnings was $2,450 instead of $24,500, it's going to give her an overpayment. This happens all the time. We do so much data entry that we make mistakes. So best practices are to not enter it unless you need to. It would create a problem on the return. Hopefully we would catch it and say, oh, that seems strange. But we might not notice and we might make a mistake. So if you have a T4, only enter box 24 and 26 if they are different from what you expect them to be. Look and check. In this case, they match exactly. I'm going to leave them blank. Okay. When I have that, you're going to go through and make sure you have no warnings. Sometimes you'll get a warning. So if, for example, she had overcontributed because her employer put too much into CPP, the computer's going to know that that's too much. It's going to say that doesn't make sense to me. It's going to give me a warning and it's going to say double check. It's going to say it's inconsistent. I was expecting that number to be 1144.5, but you typed in 1244.5. Then I'm going to look at it and go, oh, did I make a mistake or did the employer make a mistake? If I made a mistake, I'm going to fix it. If the employer made a mistake, if I type the number in right, then what I'm going to do is go here and put a check mark on it to clear my warning and say yes. And now I know I'm expecting to see an overpayment on CPP because the employer got the number wrong and the computer knew what the number should have been. I'm going to fix it now. So to fix it, it's highlighted. I can just type over the top. Try not to make another mistake. And if it makes sense, the computer's going to leave it alone and not warn you. So when you clear your warnings, sometimes it's going to warn you to check a number that is correct because you typed it right. If the employer calculated it wrong, that's going to let you know to expect to see an overpayment or an underpayment on CPP or EI. All right, we should all have Tammy's T4 in. So if we did, I want you to go to the tax return and I want you to tell me now, what is Tammy's refund or balance owing for where you are? How did the employer do? Is she getting a refund? Is she not getting a refund? Let's see if we match. So I have a refund of 1177.3. Good. All right. If you don't have that, double check your data entry. But hopefully that was the first one we're doing and it's all pretty straightforward. Good. Let's go back to the data entry and do the next one. The next one is a slip from Quebec. We do see clients who are in Manitoba who have worked in other provinces. Any other province except Quebec, you're just going to enter the T4 the way you normally do. And when you get to province, you're going to put the province and it's not going to be a problem. If they worked in Quebec, you're going to get two slips. You're going to get a T4 and you're going to get a Relève 1, a Relève 1. Okay. If you have a T4, you must also find a Relève 1. You will not be able to download that from the CRA. The CRA does not have it. Revenue Quebec has it. The CRA does not have it. So your client has to bring it to you. Here's the fun bit. When you enter it, you're going to notice that it's going to change your box numbers. So after you've done one T4, if you've done your data entry, it's going to be big like this. You're going to have all of these dotted lines. If you want to collapse it, you can collapse it by clicking on the G. It's going to open a second T4 box because you can have more than one T4. Lots of people have more than one T4. We're going to start with the T4, which is Fred's Gym. Okay, so I'm going to do Fred's Gym. The first part is the same. She had a little bit of income from Fred's Gym, and then I have to pick the province of employment, and this time I'm going to pick Quebec. And as soon as I do, it's going to add a bunch of boxes with blue numbers on it. Again, cannot stress this enough. Never enter anything with a letter on a Quebec slip, okay? You're going to notice the Relève one has a box A, and it has a box E, and it has bunches of other boxes. Do not enter them on the slip. If you do, and you're filing the return from Manitoba, you will not be able to e-file that return. You can only e-file things with those boxes if you have authorization from Revenue Quebec, and we don't, unless you've taken the Specialized Quebec course. So for our purposes, you're only going to enter the boxes that are on the T4 to start. And then there's one other thing we're going to have to do. So let's start with the T4. We have a box 17, which is 6557. We have a box 18, which is 1470. We're going to go down. We have a box 55, that's PIPP. We're going to put that one in because it's a number. We can do anything with a number is allowed. We have some income tax withheld federally. Double check again, box 24 and 26. If they match, leave them alone. Don't touch them. In this case, they match. And then we're going to have a box 56. Now, if you don't have a box 56, you have to enter one. So sometimes the employer does not fill in the box 56 on the tax return. If they've left it blank, you need to put the number from box 14 in there. So if box 56 is blank, you're going to get a warning until you fill it in. You're going to fill it in with box 14. If you don't remember this, when you get a T4 slip from Quebec, I want you to go to your Inkling to this section, to this chapter, and take a look at the instructions, and it'll tell you what to do because you have to have that number in there. You're going to put that one in, and it will clear your warning. Okay. Once I do that, I have done most of the return, but I do have a little more tax withheld that I have not addressed. So if I go to my Relève 1 and I look at box E, I have to get that on the return as well. To get it on the return, we need to use a different income line. If I enter it here where it says box E, my return will not e-file. If I leave it off, the client is going to have a higher balance owing or a lower refund than they should have. So they should be allowed to claim the box E. We have to enter it. I'm going to use the keyword for this because it's a keyword that I do frequently. You're going to go into keywords. You can do F11 or find your add a keyword, and I want you to type other hyphen or dash FIT. Stands for Other Federal Income Tax Withheld. So other dash FIT. If you type that in, it's going to open up the installments and deductions at source. So if you can't remember the keyword, remember that this is other tax withheld. It's going to go on the last page of the tax return. Find your deductions at source field. And here we're going to go other FIT, and I'm going to say Fred's Gym Relève 1 box E, and I'm going to enter $33.50. That's going to give me the federal tax withheld and the provincial portion of the tax withheld at the same time. Okay, are there any questions about what I just did? Did you manage to do all of that? Hopefully you did. And why Quebec? Yes. Well, I mean, we can go into Canadian history for that. They like to do things their own. I will tell your client at this point they're probably going to get a request for info because the CRA doesn't have that $33.50. They're going to want to see the Relève 1. So if they want to see the Relève 1, then they're going to ask for it and you'll have to send it in. When you send in the Relève 1, I want you to send in this slip plus all of the T4s because they're confirming what your tax withheld is. And Karina, do not insert the other boxes. The other boxes are not relevant to a Manitoba tax return. So leave everything else blank. The only number we take from a Relève 1 is a box E. And we don't put it on the slip, we put it in other FIT, other federal income tax withheld. Okay? If you're not comfortable with this, there are instructions in your textbook. I want you to review this. I promise you, you will see these. So they do happen. They are common. We have lots of people who travel across the country working in small jobs here and there, and then they land in Manitoba and we do their tax return. So this is something you will come across within your first couple years of doing returns. But I had them in my very first years. One of my first clients had them, so I had to go look this up. All right, I want you to notice now we still have a warning. We have a warning because we had two employers and they didn't know about each other, and it's going to mess up our CPP and our EI. So we're going to clear our warnings next. So click on your arrow and it's going to say that doesn't seem to make sense to me. I think it should be different. And you're going to double click on it. It's going to take you directly to box 17 and it's going to say, are you sure box 17 was 6557? And I'm going to look at it and go, yep, I'm sure, that's right. And I'm going to put a check mark on it. So hit the equal sign and clear your warning. And now I'm expecting a CPP overpayment for Tammy. I think she's going to have one. We'll find out in a minute. What I would like you to do now is go to the tax return and tell me what your refund is now. So if we look at the last page, what you should have is a little bit of EI overpayment, and she's going to get some Canada Workers Benefit, but less than she had before, and the refund should be $799.12. The number of total income tax deducted should be $2699.11. And if you want to know what's in that box, most of the time when you're on a tax return, if you see a line and you double click on it, so if I want to know what's included in income tax deducted, if I double click on that line, it's going to take me to the worksheet and it's going to show me I have a T4 box 22, I have a Skyline box 22, and I have an other FIT Relev 1, and there it is. So anything you want to see on a tax return, if you want the breakdown, you can go to the worksheet or just double click on the box and it'll take you there. Okay. So what else do we have to do for Tammy? Because Tammy is not done. So let me do this and make it small again. Tammy worked at a restaurant. What does that mean from a tax perspective? Tips. Did Tammy have tips? What do you think? Does the CRA expect to see tips? Absolutely they do. I need to find out how much the tips are. We're having a little computer issue here. Okay. Got that, I got that. Where did you put my tips? There we go. Okay. So she had tips. We're going to ask her what it was. Now, if she worked in the kitchen and didn't get tips, and she can prove that she didn't get tips when they ask for it, that's probably going to be a letter from her employer saying she works in the kitchen and our kitchen staff don't get tipped out. And that will work. But if she didn't work in the kitchen, or if she worked in the kitchen and they tip out everyone in the restaurant, because that does happen, she has to report it. So how much did she have in tips? I'm going to tell you. She had tips of $8,750. We have to enter this on what line number? What line number do we want the tips to go on to? On 10400. So I'm looking for other employment income. If I know I'm looking for other employment income, line 10400 is where tips go. I could go into my Smart Start here because I haven't got a section for that. I can go into my Smart Start and I can look for, under income, I'm looking for other employment income. So if I go, you're going to notice these are kind of sort of in the order of the tax returns. So we have a lot of personal things first, then we have administrative things next, then we have EI or employment income, and the next box is other employment income, and I can do that if I want to. Or I will tell you this is a keyword I have memorized. If you do F11 for your keyword and you type tips, you're probably going to find the section that you're looking for. So if I type in tips and I say yes, it's going to open my other employment income. If it's casual labor or odd jobs, we're going to put it on odd jobs. If it's tips, we're going to put it on tips. That's just to keep it straight for us. It goes to the same place on the tax return. So we're going to enter tips for her of $8,750, and then we're going to ask her, did you do anything else that you got money for that was not reported on the slip? And she's going to say, well, actually, yes, I didn't know that I needed it for my taxes, so I didn't bring it in. But I worked for elections. I did some election polling, and I made $150. So if she also had some casual labor for $150, what do I have to do on the return now? Well, that's where we do other employment income. If she was an elections officer, I'm going to say that she was an elections officer, and I'm going to enter in some additional income here. If she has anything that goes on line 10400 that's not reported on a slip, you're going to put it here. If she had a GST rebate, we didn't talk about those since we did union dues, but if you had a GST rebate from last year, that's other employment income. That's going to go here. If there's royalty from an invention, something she created, then you're going to put the royalty income here because it is other employment income. If it's a royalty from something else, you're going to put it in investment income. And that's assuming it's not reported on a slip. If it's reported on a slip, we're going to deal with it another time. Okay. So here you go. That's your section. What's that going to do to her tax return? She was getting a refund. I've now added about $9,000 worth of additional income. What do we expect is going to happen? She's probably going to owe. I'm going to check that I have no warnings. Still have no warnings. I'm good to go. And now when I go to her tax return, we have line 10400. And if I go down to the bottom, there we go. That's what we thought was going to happen, and it did. Okay, any questions about adding in other information? So you should now have a balance owing of $2,504. Okay, I want to show you just a few more things for today, but that's how we're going to be able to do the returns. That's everything you need to know to be able to do these returns. You're going to notice that everything I did, I have not saved. You can save your returns. So when you're in your data entry screen, you are going to have the option to save your return. If you go into Tools, I think it's in File, you can close, save and close. So when you've done your data entry and you've done what you want, you can save and close the file you're in. It's going to take you back to your client screen. And now you're all going to have a client named Tammy White. You're going to notice that she's bold. So you have a bold one. She's got her SIN number, her phone number, and her processing status is going to say data okay for you. I've added something in here, so mine is going to say something different. I'm going to take that out. If you want to go from your client list into your return, you can click on data entry or you can double click on the client. Either one will work. If I double click on Tammy, I'm going to take out the extra thing I put in so that it won't show up for you. There we go. Now when I go to my client, it says data okay. She's ready. And again, when I'm done my data entry, I can save and close. It will save automatically, but it is possible to lose data. So if you've done something difficult and you want to make sure it saves, just do the saving. And then when you want to open the client and you want to see the tax return, you can recalculate the client. And that's going to update everything. If I want to print the return because I want to see everything on paper, I want to keep a copy of it, you have two different print options which you can access only from the tax return. You have to be in the tax return to print it. One of them says select pages to print. So that's the printer with the little arrow saying pick what you want to print. I highly recommend you do that for this course. The other one is what we call production printing. So if I click on production printing, it's going to print a full version of the tax return, multiple copies, as much as we would need in an office. Right now, we're set up for a paper return. So it's going to print all the forms and all the schedules and everything that it can think of, plus signature pages, and that's going to waste a lot of paper. So I don't recommend doing that. In an office, we do production printing because it is the fastest way to put everything in one. We don't have to select every single line. But in your case, I'm going to recommend if you want to print something, just print the individual page that you want. You can select what you want to print. If you want the full tax return, just the federal sheets, you can select those ones. If you want to select some other ones, you can select those. Pick your printer, choose where you want to print to. You could use print PDF from here. If you want to save a copy on your computer, you can do that. Or If you know you want to print to PDF, there's also a print to PDF file. If you want to just save the file, you can do the same thing. If you're saving to PDF, it's going to ask you for the name. So what do I want to save? I'm going to click Save to PDF. Then I can browse, and I can pick whatever I want. So I'm going to go into Documents, and I'm going to pick a file, and I'm going to pick a file name, type it in, hit Save. That's going to say client number or SIN number, Tammy White PDF, and then anything I choose will be saved as PDF. If I just want the last page, I can do that, and it'll bring up a PDF for me. So you can save things here. There's a page at the bottom that you might find useful if I can find it, data used in tax calculations. If you want to see all your data entry, everything you did in one place, plus your check marks, way down at the bottom, you're going to have this page, which is your keyword data. It's going to show you every keyword that you put information for and how many check marks you've typed in. So you can do that. It's also going to have preferences for you and a few other defaults and all of those things. So everything you did data entry-wise is going to show up here. If you're having a problem with your tax return or you're not getting the right answer, you can email me a PDF and you can email me these 2 pages. However, it's not ideal because if you're missing something, I have to guess what you did wrong. So the last thing I'm going to show you is how to share a file with me. So after class, you're going to be working on your practice problems. If you're not getting the right answer and it's really frustrating, you can actually send your DT Max data directly to me. You're going to do that from your client screen. So let's assume that you want to send me your Tammy White file and take a look at it and say, did I do everything right? You're going to highlight Tammy White here. You're going to go to Tools, and you're going to choose Extract. Okay, so from your client screen, select so that it's highlighted the file you want to send me. You're going to say Tools, and you're going to say Extract. Then it's going to ask you current family or other things. Please pick current family. Don't send me everything you've done, because when I merge it into my computer, it's going to add, if you've done 50 practice files, I'm going to get 50 practice files. Just send me the one you want. You can do all years, and you can do include printing. So just leave the defaults. The defaults are fine. And then it's going to ask you where to send it and what to call it. So if you're going to send me something for Tammy White, I'm going to pick the folder I want. In this case, I'm going to put it on my USB key in my class 15 folder because we're in class 15. And then you're going to pick a file name. I recommend a file name with no dots and no dashes. It can have problems if you put dashes and slashes and hyphens. Sometimes it creates an issue. So just make plain text and don't put a file extension. So it's just going to be the file name Tammy White. Okay? You're going to send me Tammy White. I'm going to say open. And then I'm going to say OK. So it's saving where I want it to save. I'm sending just the one I selected. I've got a name on it. I'm going to say OK. If it worked, it's going to say one client extracted, extract procedure completed normally. Now, when I go into my USB key, which is here, I'm going to have a little file here that says Tammy White. I can't open that file. There's no extension on it. It's not going to show up. So if I double click on it, it will not open. But if you send that file to me in an email, I will be able to take that file and merge it into my computer, and that will give me a copy of your file, and I can make sure that I can see what you did. I'll be able to look at all your data entry and your finished result and give you some tips and feedback. So I'm going to show you that one more time. If you want to extract a file because you want me to take a look at it and help you, highlight the file you want, go Tools, Extract, browse to save it in a specific place so you can find it again. Give it a name that's easy. So just letters, Tammy White, or put your name on it. Whatever works for you is fine. And then say open. In this case, it's going to write over, so I'm just going to say Tammy White 2. I'm going to say open. If I say OK, it will tell you if it worked. If it worked, it will say extract procedure collected. And then when I open up my files here, it's going to have a file that you can attach to an email, and I can take a look at your return. Okay, So you can print files, you can save files. I should say one more thing about printing. If you are printing a file, when you print it, it's going to have a big education watermark on it. So if you thought you could use this program to do your own 2021 return, it's not going to work. Okay, so when you do that, it's going to say education all over it because we are using a classroom version of this program. So you can't use this program to file an actual tax return, but you can do it to practice and run some numbers when we've learned how to do more data entry. Okay, the last thing that I want to do is tell you what the rest of today is going to look like. So today, tomorrow, and so on, you still have your theory exam to do. Make sure you have your theory exam done, but you have more practice problems. So if I go into Inkling, you've now learned everything you need to learn to be able to do your practice problems. At the end, you have practice problems. There are 4 of them. There's Paul Little, I can't remember all the names, Terry Mason, Sylvie Casper. Sylvie Casper, I want you to notice she's never filed a tax return before, so you're going to be looking for that. And Ashley Bennett. Okay, you have until next class to work on these. Make sure you've done your practice problems before each class because we are going to go back and use some of them and you won't be able to do them fast enough. We'll assume that they're already done. So if you've missed a class for the next part, make sure you watch the recording to get any extra data that we need to add and make sure you're up to date with your practice problems. I will also be sending out to you, or Nancy will do it for me, the answers to all of the practice problems and what it's going to look like. Oh, not this one, this one. It's just going to look like this. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can make that bigger. So when you do Paul Little, if you got the answer right, he's going to owe. I want you to make sure that there is an email address for him on page 1. When you do your T4 slip, if I say 4 lines of data entry, I mean I want to see 4 numbers. So if I was doing data entry for Skyline, I would want 1, 2, 3, 4 lines of data entry here. Things with numbers in them, I'm looking for 4 lines with numbers in them. Okay. It's going to have a GST number, double check the GST number. And then I'm going to give you 2 climate action incentive numbers if I'm asking for it. One will be if you're in Winnipeg and one will be if you're out of Winnipeg. When you get your answer, don't just check the first number and see if you have a balance or a refund. Check everything because you might have gotten the right answer on the return, but done something else that was not what your client wanted. So make sure that you're referring to this. If you have questions about what I mean when I say 6 lines of data entry or whatever, send me email and ask. So you're going to get this at the end of every class with your PowerPoint slides. You're going to notice the PowerPoint slides are going to start being less useful because it's me talking and demonstrating a lot. So this class, the PowerPoint slides will be very useful. The next couple classes, they're mostly going to be just green title pages with the word demo on it. And then if you've missed something, you can watch the class. All right, and Karina, the theory exam is due before next Monday. So by the end of the day on Sunday, you have to have completed your theory exam and your practice problems. Okay, we're going to stop there.